welcome to Tavern Talks, where we share our adventures in the tabletop universe. We're starting a tavern where all great adventures start. I'll be your host, along with Ben here, Simon. And as always, the drinks are poured, our tales are ready, and the tavern is now open. So, what's the drink check, guys? What are we drinking?
We have rum. Spiced rum to kick off in the first episode.
I saved this one. It's a Sam Adams. It was a seasonal one. It's a vanilla porter. I was saving that one for a special time. I was like, this is the one. Hey, Tubes, what you got?
Nice.
I'm today's designated driver. I just got some water.
Nice, you got the water, the Gatorade.
Listen, they didn't tell me this was like a drink prerequisite podcast. I would have figured something out.
Any drink, though. Any drink.
You walked into a tavern. What did you expect?
Water.
Listen, you go to a tavern, you get water, you get ginger ale.
Yeah.
What happened is Tubia walked in. He tried to get a drink from one of our barkeepers, but he got ID'd at the bar. Unfortunately,
that's what they call a Nat 1 on the birth check when you're born in the United States. Not in, any other country in the world.
If you rolled higher, you would have been conceived earlier.
When you roll the D100, when your parents conceive you, you get the sub 10. That's the U.S.
Exactly. Such a stupid rule, as Ron Swanson said. But yeah. What are we gonna hit us off with? You want to hit us off with recaps, Ben? If you're the one with the two campaigns over here.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll look to do each sort of episode, looking into just recapping games that are going on in the servers, and we'll reach out to other DMs like we have done with Tubia tonight, and look to see how their campaigns are going as well. So yeah, I have two campaigns running in the server at the moment, which has been very fun. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the Sunless Citadel, which is how long have we been going now? Nearly, I think in April it will be 2 years that we've been going, which is pretty incredible in itself. I will say, Sunless. I've always said this. Sunless is my first campaign, so it's always surprised me just how happy I've been with the progress of it. It's not been perfect, and it's been a learning curve, a lot of it. But I'm very happy with, like, the way the table is, the players, the sort of general gist that you guys in general seem to like the story that I put out there as well. For all of these, and what we'll ask all our DMs as well that come in, is to summarize their campaign in a bit more of a fun way. So we didn't want to take up a lot of space and time recapping big 2-year campaigns like Sunless. So we're going to do it in the form of almost like a send-in spell in 25 words or less. So Sunless has, as I say, a big backstory. So the 25-word recap I have is that the conflicts of dragons from the past resurface in the present day, leaving an unlikely group of heroes to defend Eldamar from the forces of Shadow, which is exactly 25 words. And I was very proud that I managed to get that in the exact.
I took up of mine what Flames would have been.
Yeah, go. Have a little think, and I want to hear that what Flames would have been before the end of this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, I do have one question though. I can't remember if it was when I was making the scavenger hunt in the server, but I searched up some words, and I went all the way back to the beginning of Sunless, and I think it was a one shot. Right, it started off as a one shot.
Well,
and
it
was
started
the
off
low stakes thing I've ever read compared to how Sunless is now.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so. With the context of that, it wasn't really that I wanted to start off as a one shot. It was definitely I wanted to start a bigger thing. But how I started it was
use the module, right?
Genuinely through a module for the Sunless Citadel where it gets its name. The Sunless Citadel. It's called the Sunless Citadel. The book that it's in, it's an older D&D module that got republished in the Tales of the Yawning Portal, I want to say is the correct name for that book. And it's actually like the level 1 to 3 adventure, I believe, for that book. It's very good little adventure to start off, and it gave me a lot of inspiration then, which I grew and grew on to get to the point where we are today. But it is crazy to think that that sort of idea of just taking the module, because I didn't take it past level 3, that's where I stopped and just took the dive to just do everything else myself, which was for me personally as a DM, not for everyone, it's not going to work like that, but for me personally, that was a great decision because I learned a lot quicker. But just taking that initial start point is like a great thing to do for new DMs. If you don't have an idea, there are literally hundreds out there that you can just use as a starter base to get your feet running until things sort of pick up for you till you find that rhythm. But it is crazy because Sunless very much now does feel like a very big, epic sort of. We've built up to that stage where it's almost an epic, apocalyptic style sort of event that we're leading up to. And we've gone from that traditional first ever meeting of you start in a tavern sort of thing, so which is crazy. I was gonna actually say at this point,
even from the module, I think you had some things that weren't there from the beginning, like where we started in New Haven, stuff like that. I know when there's a few things, like backstory things that each person individually have brought forward, which obviously was all homebrew, which I think then made the transition a lot easier because there was already that player base sort of.
Exactly. So Oakhurst was the village that was in the module, and the Citadel was in the module. Past that, everything was sort of made up, and I did start making the world in Character Zero, already thinking beyond this like initial jump. New Haven was something that I thought of when you sort of came to me with your ideas.
I remember when we first met, I think you gave me like a whole list of knights and people that I would not whole list, like give me like 2 or 3 people that I knew, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah,
and they've all been important-ish NPCs.
100%. I think that was I think it's been the same for you, Cam, and Buzz in Sunless because you have been there since the start. I worked with you all on little things. You came to me, obviously, with I think the initial idea of being a paladin, but then having sort of a crush on a princess or something along those lines, and having this essentially what is now that relationship with Sharwin. Like this turned out to be a sort of unknown heir to the throne. You have that sort of romance to it, but it's not the basis of your relationship. It's a much deeper one where you both know that you've got deeper parts to play. You're protective of each other. It's a very complex thing that it's grown into, and it's just interesting to see where those things start.
100%. I think also from that, I was actually thinking about this earlier. From that relationship they mentioned, I know David started off, I think, with a lot of false bravado, like very like fake confident, and then whenever he was first interacting with Sharwin, he was very nervous, like kind of like he could hold a conversation, but he was very clear that there was something more that he was feeling. But I think now and sort of throughout I think David still has a lot of insecurities, but I think he's someone who's become a lot more actually confident, like kind of fake it till you make it sort of vibes, where now he's more of like able to really like talk to her on a completely normal level, even if sometimes it's challenging to maintain the relationships. I mean, any relationship is going to be difficult and have its ups and downs.
And that's the beauty of D&D. But for that in general, Stoneguard was the first place I ever thought of. There was like an independent place. I like the idea of having this like almost giant Viking-esque village of just hardened warriors in the mountains. Then there was New Haven, and also then the third place was Silverbark Forest, which were all three locations that were linked to you guys. So yeah, those places have developed so much, and it's crazy to look back on it. And it's bittersweet, like as I've said at the start of this year to this group, that we are very close to closing out this campaign in a sense. When we look at what we've done in the grand scheme of things, which is kind of exciting and sort of saddening at the same point, because you don't want to
Bittersweet.
sort of leave that sort of story where it is. But I think by the end of it, it's going to be great. The group's a great group, and I think a lot of people will want to play together again. So I have no plans on slowing down on DMing for now.
And I know. I mean, I'm very attached to my character that I'm playing, and I know you've mentioned like returning like one shots or stuff like that where we can bring them back, which I think would always be fun. And I think in general, like it's I don't know how am I going to say this. It's bittersweet, obviously, to leave a character, especially a character that you like a lot. But I think it's nice to sort of have them. But we'll get to that when that happens. Hopefully, not too soon.
Yeah, hopefully not. We've still got quite a bit to do, and there's still it's proving to be that even the smallest amount of time in the campaign is taking a long time to actually bypass because there's so much going on, which is always a good point. But yeah, it again.
I think
this would just to recap. Go ahead.
I think what you do good as DM is you mentioned Stargard. You know, you had that from the beginning, but that was the thing that I think there multiple times in the game that we were saying, "Oh, should we go there? There's reasons for us to go here." Where I think what's very good as a DM is first of all, don't throw out your notes. If you have notes for something that you're interested in, and you can have multiple different options of things. If it doesn't happen when you think it happens, it's going to happen much later on, and sometimes that's for the better. People are always going to try to go back to different things and be like, "Oh, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do this." Like, for example, the trial that we're doing right now was something that you had planned like a long time ago.
Yeah, the trials that we did now, I've had a long time ago planned. The idea around David's trial and coming to justice was something that came to my head very early on because he was wanted by New Haven. So the idea of that building pressure and being able to escape is great, but then it's just going to build pressure and having that sort of build up pent up moment of who knows what's going to happen with the trial.
And then
but yeah, I think it's been great.
The tomb stuff is what I was trying to say. The trial that we're doing right now.
The trials. Yeah, the trials for the tomb, which brings us nicely into this, which is I'll just recap quickly this week. Especially I think it's interesting because Bungo's here for this, which is this week the guys found themselves jumping into combat with the League of Shadows, with the Council of the Shadows once more, with Casimir, Clara, and Godric returning. Some great moves with them to start off the battle by the team managing to sort of remove curse and break the attunement on one of the shards for Godric. But what I think we realized this week is, and I said it, the guys aren't taking hits as well without their big beefy Jarl Kuma in the front line.
I'm philandering with Gorn right now. We're
yeah, you're going to start your own.
having our own little adventure.
I just imagine Gorn and Kuma are like in the New Haven castle, just in the hot tub, just chilling together. Like in a not hot tub, a sauna. They're like in a sauna, like in a steam room, just after like a nice workout with all the Goliaths.
How do you think David's doing? And then Gorn goes like, "Ah, he's all right." Cut back to David is getting murked in. Yeah.
But yeah, Fayhana went down to the hands of Casimir. We got to 2 death saving throws.
Godric killed him with the hand axe.
Oh no, it was. Sorry, yeah, I stand corrected. Godric actually I'm being counterspelled by Feyhana to try and get to David. Turned his attention to Feyhana. 2 hand axes was enough to take Feyhana out. Casimir came to finish the job on Feyhana and stabbed him for 2 failed death saves before Calliope rushed in to save Feyhana from the clutches of her brother.
By the way,
It's
David was
very
at full health during the whole interaction. You could have probably taken
Paladins.
the smites.
The paladins of
yeah. The paladin just stood there and watched this. What I just heard.
Hold on.
I think-
I was going to get there, but then Calliope went before I did, and I also didn't want to use my whole action for lay on hands because if the way this is the problem with D&D is when you're a defensive build or when you're a healer, it is better to deal damage than it is to heal your friends and get them back up.
That's
I think.
sadly true because spellcasters themselves could do it as a bonus action sometimes.
Yeah.
100%.
So,
Like especially if you're a paladin, the amount of damage you do on a smite is always better than doing a lay on hands. That's not to say that you shouldn't lay on hands. It is an important ability to do, but that is also the problem with the paladin being the only healer.
oh, that's true.
So you did, and this fight is sort of how I imagined it playing out. And the most interesting thing about this is that Ulrich currently isn't in the fight and is inside the tomb. One person who's been consistently able to help you guys sort of foil that presence is sort of tied up and has to be elsewhere in this fight, which doesn't help. But seeing how Cam, really is in the mind of Ulra a lot of the time, you can tell in his roleplay and how he plays him. Just manages to breeze through that first trial of the trial of memories. Just absolutely breeze through it. I genuinely had that whole moment set up, that sort of session, for it to be a case of offering that chance of changing memories, changing what you remember having, change one outcome in your past, and have that option, and at least have him weigh that up as a thing. But the fact that before I could even say anything, I just described the room. He picked up an orb, had a little monologue, shattered it, and just did exactly what he needed to do and just moved on from the thing. Was just Jeff's kiss moment as a DM.
When you try to set up an ethical dilemma for your players, they're like, dilemmas? No.
I
See, the thing.
I think Cam is probably one of my favorite guys to RP with. Just a bounce off him.
This is what I mean. Like, he's very in the head of it, and I say that because he understands what I'm trying to get at it with the trials. None of this is 3 trials to give you emotional trauma. He's thought about this, clearly thought about this whole role of that's been sort of predestined to him of the Vox Umbra and what that entails. These trials were there to sort of prove to the person that's coming in what that is sort of like, what that sort of entails, what using this magic sort of entails. And I think Cam as a player and Ulra as a character both understand that to a very high degree. So it made, although it's kind of one of those where you think it's damn, he ruined my plan moment, it was actually a great moment for me as a DM to be like, no, the player understands exactly what I want them to understand. I don't want this to be any harder than it needs to be for them. That's silly. Like, the combat, I joke around with people, as a DM does, but generally the combat's there to sort of have that side effect. This is more of a, can you guys hold off while Ulra does his thing, and how quickly can he do that? And he's managing to do that very quickly. So, very interesting start, and we'll see how that ends. As I say, next week I did post a teaser for next week, which will be called A Tale of Two Voxes, and we'll see how that sort of goes when we next check in, I suppose. Yeah.
Should we
To be,
give it a 2 now?
yeah,
Recap.
definitely. So,
Havoc and Harvest.
All right. We just started, so it's contrary to sorry, not contrary. Yeah, contrary, I think is the word. Contrary to what Ben said with Sunless, Harvest started, I think, in January, so it's been going on for only a few sessions, so that makes it easier to recap. Our players start at a Harvest Festival. It is stopped by an old hag. Turns out to be named the Baba Yagi. She's a vengeful druid, and they are going to the forest to find her.
Nice. That's 25 words.
and
Hey,
just
no,
and
it's
just
not-
like David in game, he does not stick to the 25 word limit of sending.
How much was it? How much was it?
I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know,
know
but it
either.
was way over 25. I tell you that.
So with Harvest
All
Festival,
right.
did you name it Harvest Festival out of Parks and Rec? What was that like a?
No, I thought of that, but not. So it's Havoc at the Harvest Festival. So I just wanted to do like a nice, fun festival thing. I never really watched Wheel of Time, but I know Wheel of Time
Mm.
starts with the Harvest Festival. And I watched the Amazon Prime, and I think it's such a trope that like there's just a fun party and it's gonna get ruined. And I thought it'd be fun.
Not the Red Wedding. Too?
Also, I think, yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I had the plan of there being an evil person who was going to attack it, who just did it because people like forgot the druids. And what ended up happening, because I felt bad about I felt like such an evil DM when I did this, but also like a good DM in a way. Because the lady who the main villain was, and there was like a whole mystery plot line, which was created because one of the players, Buzz, is playing a private detective kobold. So because he's playing the Inquisitor rogue, I was like, oh, like we're gonna add some more mystery elements just to kind of make him happy. And so he can feel useful. He's a PI. So the person that it actually was, like there's a bunch of clues. But that person giving them healing potions, which turned out to be potions of poison. And I was looking at the rules of potion of poison, and they can only be detected via the identify spell. That's the only way you can know if it's actually poisonous versus it's actually a healing potion. And I was like, these guys are level 4, or like level 3 at the time. I'm like, this is gonna. None of them have identify. I'm gonna be a dick if I just let this be a thing where if you don't have identify, it doesn't work. So I was like, okay, you guys can make perception checks, medicine checks, arcana checks. Like I bent the rules a little bit, just because I was like, if it's just identify, it's gonna be one of those things where it's you pull the sheep over the wool's head, and it's like that's although that can be great as a DM, or betrayal is one that's like there's a hint there. Even if it's just make a check, and if you fail, at least that's there to anticipate that you're not just screwing over your players.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think first off, the first thing I'll say is good job, because there's a quote that I've always liked from Brendan Lee Monaghan, which is if you're a DM and your player comes to you and says they want to be a PI detective, and you don't put a mystery in your campaign for them to solve or cater to that, you're a dick. You're a bad DM.
Yeah.
That's not catering to what you do. So I think definitely learning that works.
I think being a player helps being a DM, because when you're a player, you know what you want out of a DM.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's session 0 and
I think there's also a line though where you don't want to look at it as a player, because that will be your downfall.
for sure.
Because it's not that you're against it, the players, and you don't want to look at it like you're against. But a good example of this is sort of, I'm trying to think about how I would put this.
I mean, Kuma was a city guard.
Things too obvious.
As his
I know what you're saying.
backstory. So
Well,
every time I do backstory stuff, I always say, "Oh, this."
I think
I mean that's the
one,
you want to leave it open ended for a DM for sure.
Yeah.
early on in Sunless, I was very much the same. It was like, let's bend the rules to make this work because I think this is cool. And I want my players to have fun. And I think that's the right mentality. I think as you go along, you learn how to do it where you don't sort of screw yourself over as a DM.
For sure.
And things like when you change, I'm not saying that you made a bad call. I think I've always said to any DM, you do what you want to do in your campaign. It's your world. I think that's the point where later on, ain't 2 years into DMing, I would probably go, okay, this can only be cast by identify. The potion of poison is crazy that it just looks like a potion of healing. I thought that was a
Yes.
crazy detail that I didn't realize for ages. And it's very deadly, and you can only do it via identify. But allowing for the medicine checks is fine. But then you sort of there's a possibility of, depending on your player group, does it lead down the path of, oh well, can I detect poisons in things without having that expertise or knowledge, or go down that sort of path? So I think that's where I've learned to go, okay, you need identify to overcome this problem. I'm just going to give you access to identify. That way that I'm not changing the rules. I think the DM's best friend is homebrew items. I genuinely think homebrewing some items, not when you start out, but later on when you've got a bit of experience, when you realize there's a bit of a hole or a gap, homebrew items is a perfect way as a DM who knows what that person needs to go, okay, this is where I'm going to change it.
I think you're right. I think consistency is key. I think that's sort of what you're saying with the whole setting up precedent, because I think once you have that precedent, that is what players want. Players want structure, but also freedom, I think, in a sense. And I think that's what DMing is, providing the structure for your players to have fun, but also giving them the freedom to do what they want, that they find as fun.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if identify was the only way, and if you stuck with it, it could have been you had a side quest to maybe get a scroll with identify on it. And for some reason it's with like some hardened tag who doesn't want to share her magic scrolls, and the group has to heist it. Stuff like that.
The thing was, I just gave it to them. I just said, this person's trying to fuck with you. I'm giving you a potion of poison to try to fuck with you and just be a. So I'm like, if I just give them that and they drink it and then they fall for 3d6 damage in an important moment, which did happen, by the way. But then I was like, oh, like you guys did the medicine checks, perception checks, you didn't find anything. I made it a high DC. I think it was like 25, but then like 20.
I think that's the point.
Something's wrong.
Give them the option. You gave them the option, and that's the main thing. Always give your players the option to be able to figure those things out. I mean, I just thought about it going, and I'll speak about thoughts in a bit, but in the heart of the sea, or thoughts as we're going to call it, it's not a sexualized campaign in the slightest. It is just an acronym. In the heart of the sea, at the start of the campaign, I made a very conscious decision in my head that in Sunless, I very much was open about, oh, this is a magic item, this is what it does. You don't need to sort of figure that out in game with identifiers and stuff. For the Heart of the Sea, I wanted that to be different. I wanted it to be that, oh, there's magical items out there and you can find them, but you're not necessarily going to know what they need to do. There's reasons why I've got that. I'm not going to say why, just in case people are listening. But effectively,
it's a pirate campaign. It's a pirate campaign. So
yeah,
in a pirate
exactly.
campaign, it makes sense. You're finding the treasure, you don't know what it is. Like,
yeah, I think there's, yeah, that's exactly it. I think there's more of a need for mystery around what you're finding. And it works great, but then I realized very early on, there's no wizard in the group. There's no like main spellcaster as such that would be able to get identify early on. It would be sort of out of the way for anyone to really dip in to get that. It would have been a bit sucky for me to carry on with that rule without giving them identify. So the first time that they found loot at after the first main combat that they did was a load of items that they couldn't really identify, but then they found a spyglass which was gives a bonus on perception checks, but also allows you to cast identify once per short rest when you use it on an item. Things like that, adding in, okay, now you've got access, it's limited. I mean, once per short rest is not as limiting as I think
No.
people think it is. Once per short rest is great, but to be able to identify things like that, it means they've got a source to be able to sift through their treasure quickly and find out what things actually do. So,
speaking of like, items and like
Mhm.
identify, like I have to give the D&D movie props as DMs. I don't think we ever do attunement as intense as it should have been, like as the game has written it out to be. Like,
I 100% agree
yeah,
with that.
you
After
either
watching the D&D movie,
yeah,
I was like, "Oh shit, should I be making more of a thing of attunement?"
yeah,
Because I
attunement
just
just
saw it
seems like
as a
a thing.
barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a
I
good
think
hot take for a future episode. Is attunement a hindrance, or is it something that
It could be
you
a
should
story.
lean into for RP and story?
I think in that case it depends on I think it would depend on the item. Certain items feel like this is that character's item. Whereas other items just feel
Mhm.
like something that a character has in their pack.
Yeah, like, but I think if the attunement is there's no description, like it has to be a class or it has to be a
Yeah.
certain level or something. I think that's because I sometimes I regret not taking attunement like even further, other than
Yeah,
just sitting down for a long rest trying to meditate or whatever, you know.
I think it's definitely an interesting train of thought.
I agree.
I think it's something that I will probably think about more, like consciously. Especially with again the option of doing it in the heart of the sea with a pirate themed campaign. Um, there's just a lot of, as I say, a lot of different avenues and options available to sort of go down in the treasure route.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Speaking of
There's a
treasure,
ruling I know you had at the beginning of Sunless that I want to ask you about.
That was
Oh,
what was that? Sorry, Tubia.
there's a no, go ahead. Something. I didn't.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, Bungo had one of the greatest segues lined up ready for that
and then I get cut off.
as well, and then
Speaking
you
of
cut off.
treasure, okay, yeah,
Sorry, my
go ahead.
bad.
What's your thoughts?
There's a ruling that you had at the beginning of Sunless, which was that you couldn't give healing potions to a unconscious person. And I'm curious if you've changed your thoughts on that one.
Mm.
That's still a ruling that you've had because it actually hasn't come up in a while.
I will stand my gun. It's on this decision that I made very much at the start of the campaign when I first started out DMing. There's something instinctually to me, and I know this is a really bad thing to do as a DM. Please don't do this. Don't sit there and go, "Oh well, real life, it's fantasy world." But there's something about. Have you ever tried to make an unconscious person drink anything? It just doesn't work. You need to use your muscles to swallow things like that. So to me, it's always just been a picture of a PC like pouring liquid into a mouth that's overflowing and not actually swallowing
If you
anything.
accidentally inhale it, it goes into
Yeah,
the
you're
lung.
just drowning them. You're just drowning a dead body. Like, I don't think I've changed my. I don't know. I feel like if players really got uppity about it, I'd sort of talk to them about why that would be. Is it
I
because you don't have access to? The main thing would be to in my head. It sounds like you don't have access to healing spells if you're relying on healing potions to bring someone back up from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So can we change that? Can I give you healing word is a first level spell? It's not a lot to give someone access to healing word and they can upcast it. Things
It's
like
enough to get
this.
them up.
It's
you've
enough.
also allowed
It's only a little health, but it's enough to get someone up. These are little. This is exactly what I was talking about before, with small little fixes that really help improve these things that you can do as a DM. They are your rules, so you can change things.
You've also allowed healing potions generally to be taken as a bonus action, which I think mitigate like people having to be in the ground in the first place. If you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna go down, I might as well just take a healing
Mhm.
potion.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunless it's not bonus actions. In thoughts, I'm actually doing NADPOD rules, which is bonus action, bonus action to roll, action to drink the potion means you get the full amount of healing you can get from that potion.
Yeah, makes sense. I love NADPOD. NADPOD, shout out. Love him.
NADPOD, if you're listening, I'm gonna shout you out. You all right?
Hey, Tony Axford, Ryan Murphy, and Caldwell Tanner, and Jake Hurwitz, if you're listening, listen. We made it places if you're listening.
If you're listening, we made it.
We made
If you're listening, invite us to D20. We will. Your ratings will go down, but we will have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. Yeah, there's not. I guess going on to thoughts in terms of Bungo's beautiful segue that happened 5 minutes ago. Now,
Listen, like the segues.
I've talked about that. I've talked about thoughts a little bit, so you sort of get the gist. The backstory, the Bucks. How it started out is this isn't going to be a 5-word summary, although I will come up with one. I just couldn't think of a good enough one right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts I did have a different start to how I did with Sunless. There's a lot of things that I wanted to approach with character creation differently. One of them was doing session zeros, individual session zeros, rather than I did one group session 0, I believe, just to talk about things, and then I did individual ones. The individual session 0s were actually they weren't just talk sessions, they were roleplay sessions.
Yeah.
It was like, this is your individual chance to start creating your mark in this world. It lets me, it was a great idea because it lets me know as a DM, this is how this player likes to play, this is what this player is looking for straight off the bat. So that's how I started in terms of how I started building it, and then I brought them all together. So I needed a way to have them all separate at the start for session 0s, but be able to bring them together in a way where for session 1 they're gonna start as a group, which eventually ended up in me arresting them all by the Serenian Marines. Serenia is almost like the sort of royalistic landmass sort of force that's in the world. The Serenian Peninsula is the area that they're in, which is in the sea. But they got taken by the Marines and managed to actually escape from the ship thanks to a little bit of help from one of the Marines aboard the ship. And since then, it's just been a lot of shenanigans. They have proven themselves to be a little bit of a wild card crew. And last week this last session was them dealing with the aftermath of them killing their first real bountied pirate in the Harpy Queen, whose name was Hallie Quintella. It's like their first sort of big bad pirate that they've killed. So we're sort of dealing with the aftermath of that. They currently have that body in a bag of holding, the absolute psychopaths. So, but it is worth 3 million gold. But last session, they realized that they're going to have a hard time handing that in when they've now developed bounties on their own heads. Much smaller ones, but ones nonetheless, which makes it very hard to visit a Serenian outpost at the moment.
Out of curiosity, do they all have the same bounty, or are their bounties different based on the person, their actions?
That's a very interesting question. As I explained to the group last session, all of them, there's a group of 5 for Thoughts. 4 of them had the same bounty, which was 25,000 gold. And were all wanted dead or alive. The 4th one, which was their captain, which is a female dragonborn, was wanted alive for 100,000 gold.
Not bad. The thing is with starting, because I've done that before as well, though, session 0 separately. They also get a taste of the world before they all come together as a group, so they know what to like, where things are already. They know certain NPCs. I think that's the best way, even though it's a little time consuming, depending how many times you're doing it. Like how many people, like if individually you
Yeah.
split them off into like 2 and 2. I think
100%.
that's the best way. I think if
How long did these session zeros last? By the way,
I think roughly around an hour, maybe an hour and a half for some of them, depending on what
Nice.
sort of stuff we got up to. I had ways to segue into the fact that they would, obviously I had to railroad them a bit in terms of story of them being caught. I had to find some way of them being caught by the end of the session 0 for something or other. Which wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be for some people. But yeah, definitely doing those session 0s is a very good idea for people looking to start a campaign or like looking at character creation. The other recommendation I have from that I did was the rumor recommendation. I believe Cam posted it a while back in a video about it, which was the video that I saw. It's a super simple concept and it works so well to help RP within the group early on, which is get each player to write you 4 rumors in total. So 2 true facts about themselves and 2 false facts, 2 rumors that other characters may have heard about them. So these would have to be things that are out there, common knowledge. It wouldn't be things like your deep secrets, because unless you're telling people that, and that's being spread around. But getting your characters to make these rumors, for one, gets them thinking about their character. Oh, what would someone say that's not true about me? That's a weird question to think about that you don't get asked a lot to start off in character creation. What's something that someone would lie about you about, or say about you that's not true? The second part of that is then you take all of their rumors and you split them up. It worked really well with my group, there was 5 of them. So, which was, I think, an ideal number for this. All of them gave me their 4 facts back. I swapped it all around, and then each person was given back 4 rumors, 1 for each person in the group, but they didn't know whether it was true or false.
Nice.
So they go into the campaign in session 1. Each person, they have a statement about a fact, something that they've heard about this person that they don't know whether it's true or false, but it opens up RP things. So they ranged from, oh, this person crashed a boat and set fire to a tavern when she was a kid, to things like, this person has like a horrible gambling addiction. This person killed her crew. Like, very, like, it opens up a lot of early game roleplay, which I think is one of the hardest things to tackle with new groups, is getting the rhythm with each other early game.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my tips for starting out character creation. Try them. Next time you're doing character creation and you're doing maybe a fantasy noir Pathfinder 2E game.
Who would that guy be? Hey, Tubes, you're kind of cutting off there. Like your internet slowed down for me.
Okay. The bouncers have kicked him out.
Yeah.
The tavern bouncers have kicked him out.
I do like that idea. Yeah, I do like that idea for a noir, not a noir. Well, I'm doing a noir for Call of Cthulhu because it's like an investigator vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I didn't read fully like the video. I think it was a video you guys sent. I didn't watch it fully, but I got like the gist of it. So that's nice. And that's just starting off. So
nice. I'm excited for it. I want to join that campaign.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I might drop another teaser as at the end of this.
I think you definitely got a lot of interest for it.
And
Yeah.
I'm starting campaign 2, which should be fun. I'm excited for that one too.
But was that for Cam's one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cam's one's I'm very interested in the idea of that merged world sort of thing. Also, I think I got to a point where I do DM twice a week, but I kind of do miss being a player. I kind of miss actually sitting the other side of the table and actually investing in a character a little bit.
You're fun to have as a player because we played before. You were playing. Actually, played twice together on the player side. Not long. Not for you played. In Flames of Heaven, you were Luna.
Mhm.
That's her name. Oh, Hope.
Hope.
Hope. What am I saying? Luna, someone else. Hope. And then you
Yeah, Hope.
played. And then in Kothe's Infinite Solstice, you played.
Oh yeah,
Forgetting his
Emmett and Emmett and company.
Company. Yeah, that's the name.
What I like about Hope is that I wrote New Hope Orphanage in a year before, and it just happened to be that he got attached to this orphan that was like got us stuck there.
This is where you didn't realize what it was going to be like having a story based DM in your game.
Yeah.
Because like I realized I will pick up on the smallest little things and I'll just go, oh okay. Like the fact that I don't know what it was. I think I was reading through the notes and I was like, oh, there's actually an orphanage called the New Hope Orphanage, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And the idea around Hope was obviously trying to be charitable, or like trying to give back, because I think there was, especially with that one moment, which I do think was one of probably my favorite moment with Hope, where she fireballed the
that was sick.
guy just straight in the face.
That was sick. I love that.
I think there was that side of her that she is like a very genuine, helpful person, but she's also like got that bit of weird. There's that weird religious sect energy where they can take it too far on things when they believe for certain morals. And it's not that her certain morals are bad that she believes in, but obviously, as a cleric, you shouldn't be fireballing someone at point blank range. Yeah, I think clerics are fun to play. Hope was very fun to play.
I think as DMs going to players, I think sometimes players they don't know what to do. Like you leave something open ended, and you're like, all right, so what do you guys want to do?
Yeah.
I think DMs moving to players, they have the most understanding of what they want to do next. Other than like sometimes players they kind of just say like, I don't know what to. Should I go to like a library, even though you hinted at something else that that could lead to a story.
Yeah, what I notice is, one of the greatest tells at a table is if a DM is at the present. When you say, does anyone have anything they want to do at downtime? Is there anything anyone wants to do in
I like
between?
to say the day is yours. I got that from Mercury, I think. The day is yours. What do you want to do?
that is great. Like, it's just that thing of, a lot of the time DMs are the people that go, oh yeah, I've got stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
And that was me. I have to try and, with Hope, I have to try and get involved with something, and I wanted something more. So that whole Rel storyline, the fact that she felt responsible for the fact that there's essentially a little girl that doesn't know any better, being sort of in this sort of life that she wanted, but she didn't really choose. There was an element of that fit in my character a lot, and it just got to a point where it did have that energy of, it was like, I will kill and die for this person. Like,
You just reminded me. Like, I don't know if you guys played any of the Fallout games.
yeah.
The ending to the Fallout games, they always have the outros with different characters, NPCs you met, and some guy voiceovers it, like how they're doing now. And that's something I wanted to do for Flames, and Rel was one of my favorites to do. And I totally forgot I wanted to do that. But yeah, like how she turned out in the future.
Rel was a great character. Very, and I liked Rel and
You should bring
that whole storyline with Big Brother. And that whole storyline in the city, and even the moment where like I think the most heartbreaking moment for me was having to banish Big Brother as Hope, and
Yeah.
then having to lie because she never actually came clean to Rel, from what I remember about it.
I don't think you did.
I
You
think
maybe like
she
hinted at
left
it.
it very open ended about what happened. And I think even like as a player and as a character, I was like, man, this feels too real. Like there's a level of guilt here that, although I still firmly believe that was probably one of the right choices to do, just to take it out of the situation completely. It doesn't change the fact that you're kind of the source of the pain that this girl that you've been trying to protect won't see the one person she does want to see.
Yeah.
I think it's
Again.
crazy. You heard about it. You hear about it sometimes, but you don't really know how much you feel what your characters feel until like you actually have moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mhm.
I think I told like I probably did tell you the night after the session where I had to tell Charwin that she was the heir and like we had that little fight, I could not sleep. I tried to sleep, but I just felt like such a dick. I'm like, I've been keeping this from this person that I should care about, like, this like huge secret, and I just felt like such an asshole. I'm like, oh, but like,
That was another great moment. That argument. That well, it wasn't even really an argument. It was just a scolding moment that everyone knew was coming. That moment of Sharwin. Everyone knew that Sharwin wasn't going to take it great. I think she took it as well as she probably could
oh,
take it at
better
the
than I
time.
thought she was gonna take it.
But
And there's a time where
yeah,
she was gonna be a little crazy, just like fireballing people. And then
yeah,
that's
and
it.
Aura stopped her from doing so by killing her himself,
Yeah,
which was a moment that stuck out for me as well.
yeah.
I think should we wrap it up with hot take? A quick
Yeah.
hot take to end it up
So, a
for the
tepid
tavern.
take.
Hot take. Hot take actually comes from Tubia himself this
There's
week,
one for me.
which is the use around AI generated art within D&D games.
So what's the main argument about that? Is my question? Is
Should
it
should DMs be using AI art, or what if when we use AI art? Because I know all three of us use AI art. So
Mhm.
what is the limit to AI art, and also what just the general topic about AI art? I mean, sometimes AI just in general it has its own biases. It's reactive to certain things. It can be very tropey if you try to put in something. It's like
Mhm.
can only really spit out things that have a certain trope attached to it.
Mhm.
Like I know I wanted to make a jacked kobold and it on Microsoft Copilot, and it was like having trouble making a kobold. I wanted to make a dwarven woman who like was muscular and like wasn't bearded, and it was having trouble with that too as well. Like just sometimes when you want to throw in certain prompts, it has trouble because it's not used to it because it hasn't seen those stuff before. If that makes sense, or like hasn't gotten much experience from it.
yeah. I I think I don't want to give the easy answer where it's like, oh, it's a tool, you use it to your like your own degree. But I think the biggest argument I hear is it devalues artists, like
I
other
agree.
artists. Uh, I think they're like, oh, I could have done that, something like that, or uh, you're not really making the art, you're just generating it. I think it's the two biggest arguments I hear.
The
And
thing,
See, I have this standpoint and a very firm standpoint on
Mhm.
AI art. I think that the biggest argument is that it's putting artists out of business or and that sort of thing. The general way I look at it is AI has to have a source material. It has to have art to
yeah,
feed off. That art has to be from a human.
Mhm.
That it has to have references. Now, when that art is used in these AI things, if that art is licensed, if that creator is paid for their art that's then used in that system,
yeah.
that's then like later AI generated into things, because it's never going to replicate that same image again anyway. As long as the creator is getting paid, as long as the artist is seeing some form of income from these the use of AI, I don't think it should be something that's deemed wrong. because this links into my next point is AIR is great.
Mhm.
It's very
Yeah.
hard to master the prompt. AIR is great. However, it is never and always will be pretty far from perfect. For what you
100%.
want in terms of D&D,
Right.
you have an image in your head
Yes.
AI
Oh my-
cannot fulfill.
No.
100%. I've typically used the animation style, like the watercolor animation style, just because I think it's better than the live action. I think the live action one's very funky and a little weird. But the other thing I'll say is I think first of all it's great convenience. It makes great art and has a good impact on your games when your players see a visual of an NPC or a visual of a place.
Yeah.
The one thing I think there's a big difference. People like us, we're playing D&D for fun at the end of the day. It's not for profit. We're not making anything off of this art. I'm
We
not
don't
gonna
play for
hire
games.
someone
Exactly.
I'm not gonna hire someone to do commission anyway.
Mhm.
And if I'm gonna find an art for an NPC, I'm just gonna look on Google and take someone's art anyway and try to put it there.
Exactly.
Right?
Mhm.
So it's like at that point I might as well use it. But I think obviously big D&D shows, I don't think they use AI art, but they definitely shouldn't, since there's people that they're paying to do their own thing that are actually probably can do much better job than AI art. I think ultimately it's a convenience, but I think it can become an over reliance on it and just if you really want your mini or you really want like a picture of your PC or NPC in a certain way, go ahead, sure, commission someone.
Mhm.
But AI art just is quicker, and for a lot of times DMs don't have a lot of time, and the hardest thing and the biggest barrier of entry to being a DM is time. I think as well as fear of and anxiety of not being able to do it. So I think tools like AI art and like a bunch of other things like map makers and stuff like that help and alleviate that stress and anxiety from DMs, which ultimately makes games better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
we
agree.
DM weekly. Well, we're gonna commission an art as a teaser every every week, trying to
Yeah.
rush somebody. Yeah.
No.
So
No, 100%. I think, yeah, AI is great for what you need it for, especially in your games. If you're not making money from it, especially like you're not profiting from this in the same way that something like Critical Role would.
Well, here's the
Exactly.
thing: we're all three of us here are writers, right?
hmm
So let's switch it up to ChatGPT. Like you can ask it to write a whole book for
hmm
you.
And it's
How do we?
terrible.
Yeah,
You can't publish it.
yeah,
This is what I mean. The one of the whole points is mastering the prompt with AI art.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's great to use this. Do I think we should still be supporting artists out there, independent artists out there that are great doing character work? Yes. Am I personally planning on getting artworks commissioned for the parties of my campaigns after each one as a memento? Yes. These are things that I plan to do, and I think supporting people that can do that is great. I've seen some great artists that have done things like
oh, absolutely.
sort of longer pictures where they'll do sort of almost like silhouette style of each character and like sort of bits and bobs around them. And I really like the idea of having that. Like my office, as you can see, is new. It's very bare, but being able to have like things like that in here, I think that's great. I think we should
Yeah,
still
for
carry
sure.
on supporting artists. I don't think AI art should replace it, but for people who aren't talented enough to draw, that want quick solutions to giving visual aids for their D&D games, I don't
Also,
think that should be frowned upon.
putting the prompt in it can be fun and getting and like it can be fun to sort of figure things out and brainstorm things. In regards to writing, I mean, I'm a college student. I use ChatGPT pretty frequently, not to to do my
Wait.
homework. That's illegal. But I use ChatGPT like I write an essay. I put my essay into ChatGPT. I say, hey, edit this for spelling and grammar, and it makes what I'm putting into it way better. Like not way better, but it edits it, edits the spelling, edits the grammar. And I think all these things like AI, what they're doing, they should be used for is to make your ideas better and to make your ideas like present them in a better and more like a more tangible way. And I think AI art is a great way to do that, where you have a character idea in your head and you say, draw this for me, or like make this for me, and then that helps you in a sense. But again, I don't think that we should replace indie artists. I definitely disagree with that fact. But I'll give an example. There was a guy who like in the Discord who's an artist, and I asked him like a very long time ago to make me an art, and then the guy never responded to me. I'm
Yeah,
like, it takes months, and I'm like, AI art it takes me 5 minutes.
Yep.
it's one of those. There's plenty of people there out there that I know that are willing to do commissions for character art. For me, especially with previews, as you say,
Yeah.
it's I like doing the previews each week. It's not something that I'm gonna be generating or drawing my own artwork for that's good enough that I feel like I could post. A lot of the time I don't get the results that I really want with AI, but it is a means to an end, unfortunately. And I think it's only going to get. What was that?
Maybe sometimes 30 minutes just to get like a decent idea of what I had in my head.
Yeah,
I will
that's
say
it.
Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, in my opinion, has been the best one. I like Copilot a lot, and I also think that it's a lot better in the watercolor style. I also just like anime, and I like animated stuff a lot more than like I love Game of Thrones. Don't get me wrong, but I think when I think fantasy and when I think D&D, I think more in like an anime style than I do in a typical Game of Thrones style. If that makes sense. So that sort of helps at least me visualize things a little bit better.
I think the Pix AI one that you sent me a while back.
I still use.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I use.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's very good. It's not the same in the sense of like you pick a style and then you put in your prompt. Like it's just a prompt, but I think that's better because you can put in there what sort of style that you wanted to do it in anyway.
I think there's pros and
Yeah.
cons to it. I think AI in general, I mean, is a subject that I'm interested in, and I think that it is changing the way our world works, and it's going to keep changing it. But I think ultimately using it in a proper way is what's going to give people a competitive advantage. And I think if giving visual aids to your players is what makes you a better DM, and it will make you a better DM, you might as well leverage AI to help you with that.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be already spending money or commissioning people to do art for you.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's
I like how this was supposed to be a hot take, but we all agree.
I think it's a hot
Those are
take
all
because of
users.
the subject around it. I thought it would be fun because we all use it. So I think
Yeah.
it's something but I think we all see that side of, we're not blind to the reality that there is downfalls to AI and there are negatives to it, as with most things.
And
But I'm sure the takes will get hotter as the weeks continue. We start off pretty tame to start off.
Theater of
But
the mind versus minis, not mini maps.
Mini's all good. I mean, there's no argument there.
I actually like theater.
I can't
love
wait.
theater.
I can't wait in. I've only ever done virtual D&D, so
Theater of the mind is great. I love theater of the
Theater of the
mind,
Mind
but
is
mini.
good, but I've only done it with only one player, and when I try to do it with maybe four, that's when I saw it fall apart,
Yeah.
and I was like, "This
Does it
is
need to be like 30?
like,
What
can
are
I
you
move
talking?
10 feet this way?" I'm like, "I don't know, can you?
yeah,
I don't know what's in your head. I don't know
yeah.
if
It
you got
it takes a lot more descriptive work as a DM, but that's a hot take for another time. Um, I think we're all about done in the tavern. I think they
Yeah, I
want
think it's
to.
average.
I think the bartender's calling.
They're
He wants to go home.
yeah,
Oh
these
look,
people
the
We want
bar's
it.
going.
they're headed
The
out.
bar's hitting on the barmaid again. We have to kick him out.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll see
Do
you
you want to
guys.
close this off?
I'll see you
And
guys
go.
next week as regulars, as fellow regulars. But yeah, thanks for thank everybody for listening. This is our first episode of Tavern Talks. Yeah, we have a whole chat. We have a whole chat room in Dragon's Bane. So
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and put any questions, any hot takes, any
Any
yeah.
suggestions? Yeah.
If you thought Tubia
And
shouldn't have made
ladies,
his character a certain way, then you've been like, hey, don't get out of the campaign. Just gonna. Just, yeah, any questions, any thoughts? With
be sure to leave them a nice review because I want to come back, and I can't do that if this podcast flops.
yeah, we're both DMs here. We should actually get Mike on here too. He's another fellow DM.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should do an episode.
We've got a good list of. As I say, the reason we did this is there's a good. We were sort of like blown back a little bit by how much interest there was by people. not just to listen to it, but to also be on it, and could be able to be like a guest and talk about these things to themselves, which is great. I'm sure we'll have a lot more guests on soon, and I'm sure we'll have Tubia again on soon to tell us how Havoc's going next
Listen,
time.
they can't shut me up. They've tried, but they can't.
We've tried. It doesn't work. Trust me. But yeah, let us know if there's anything else that you guys want to see.
DMing players, different tabletops. As one of us here is moving away from 5e, so if you want to learn within parallel, yeah.
I haven't seen news about 1D yet recently. I know that it's coming out, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of thoughts here. But yeah, thanks guys, and I guess we'll see you all next week, same time.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.